just in case. All right, cool. So the first thing you get to decide today is the orientation. If you wanted to do it landscape and turn it, you could, but I'm going to be painting portrait today. I'm using 11 by 14. I'm using canvas paper, and I love this stuff. I talk about this in my classes often. I love popping in this artwork into a frame. It's like easy to store, doesn't get bent. I don't know. I love it. Some of you may be painting on canvas. That's totally fine too. But I love being able to kind of swap these in and out of frames. It kind of dresses them up a little easier. You get to decide the color of the background today. Whatever color you choose, I want you to choose a light color. So maybe you want a very light yellow house or a light blue. Maybe some of you want to do a light pink like me. I'm not a big pink girl, but I gotta say, I love the way that this came out. It came out so beautiful and so soft. It's like a really nice blush color. So I'm going to do the pink again today because I thought it came out really nice. I think if I wasn't doing pink, I would do like a light yellow house. Okay, but you can do whatever you want. So you can start just by mixing that color of choice. So I'm going to set this over here and I'll mix this color of choice with you. I'm going to start with white on my canvas, on my palette, because I'm going to add like a little bit of yellow kind of nearby and bring the yellow into it. Or not yellow, sorry, red. I got the yellow stuck on my brain. All right. So I'm going to do a little bit of red. And I'm using, oh boy, I'm already making a mess. How is this happening? All right. What is happening with my world today? I haven't even started and I have red paint all over my hands. All right, here we go.
And you changed your shirt.
And I changed my shirt. Good thing, right? Oh gosh, it's all right. We're here to have fun. We can laugh at each other. I expect you all to laugh at me by now. We have an artist relationship. All right, so I have a little bit of red on my plate. I'm just gonna look at, literally, I have red all over my hand and I just got started. I'm gonna take a little bit of water on my brush and I'm going to wipe the water from my brush and I'm gonna take just a tiny corner of my red and I'm just gonna mix it in with my white. And I want you to kind of pick. My biggest suggestion is just keep this color light. So it's just like a little subtle. And you can see this is just a soft, subtle pink. You can decide what you want this to be. I'll probably put just a little bit more, but I'm not gonna do more than that. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, like this is plenty. And you're going to paint the entire background. Now this is actually very pink, but well, in my opinion, but it's okay. We're going to roll with this. And you're going to do some nice smooth brush strokes. So find the color that you like. And do some nice smooth brush strokes. Fill in the entire background. If you wanted to add a little bit of water to this, you could. You can make some of those choices. But just settle into the process. This is a no rush, like take your time. If anyone has any questions throughout the class, please don't hesitate to ask. And
I had a question not related to what we were doing today, but I did a watercolor on watercolor paper and it concaved on it, like it's not flat, Megan.
yes.
Figure out how to flatten it out because I know I don't want to put water on the front, right?
Yeah.
How do you suggest to get it to lay a little bit flatter to put it like in a frame?
You could still put it in a frame. It will flatten out in a frame for you.
Oh, it will?
Yep.
Eventually it'll lay down?
It will lay flat in your frame. Exactly. Yeah, because the glass or plastic on the front of the frame will push it flat for you.
Gotcha.
Yep, you should be fine.
Okay.
You can see, look at how pink this is. I added hardly any and it's like very pink. You can, yeah, so take your time. I mean, with regards to that watercolor paper, you should be fine.
Okay.
At just putting it right in. Absolutely. I'll show you what the acrylic paper, it bends like a little bit, as you can see,
Yeah.
but it does not curl.
Yeah.
Like you can see it's fairly flat, just to kind of give you perspective.
Yeah.
All right. But if you're putting it in a frame, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I have it on my fridge right now with a magnet and it's all lumped and bumped.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was gonna send you an email and I kept forgetting to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably depends on like how much water you add to it too. Like painting with a lot of water on a watercolor paper, or painting with just like a little bit, and some acrylic
Yeah.
paint. I think that probably has a bit to do with it.
Yeah. I'm sure I used more than I needed to, trying to learn how to, that come out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if you had some sort of secret to.
I don't know. No Mary Poppins trick for that one. I would just
Yeah.
put it in the frame and forget it.
All right.
Yep.
Oh, it was the lake with the mountains in the background.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Fun. Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
No, that was a fun one.
Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, and I have classes for July posted. I have like a nighttime starry scene, which will be really fun. And it's gonna have a little bit of a different dynamic to it. I have like a mushroom forest one that will be really fun. Nothing we've done before. So I'm excited. And then I'm open to any 4th of July related themes. If anybody has any ideas for any fun 4th of July related ones. I could do a gnome. I know gnomes are really popular, like a 4th of July gnome, or we could do like a fireworks scene. And I'll have that class available for free over the 4th of July holiday, or leading up to. So let me know if anybody has any cool ideas. All right. So I'm just gonna do some nice smooth brush strokes. You can see my pinks are a little gradient. It's a little darker at the top. That's okay for me. I added a little bit more white kind of halfway through. Any way you want to fill in this background is fine. We don't want this to be like a really thick, heavy paint. We want it to be nice and smooth because we do need this area to dry 100% before we do our drawing and our sketching on top, which, knowing acrylic, it doesn't take that long. We'll see how the humidity kicks in today, but
yeah,
I might wave it around here for a minute if it doesn't dry quickly.
I was thinking of going in the bathroom with the hair dryer for a little
Yeah,
bit.
you might need to. You might need to.
I know, it's really not.
I'm out on a porch right now, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how quickly it dries.
Yeah.
One of these days, I'll be outside painting in nature for you all, but today is just not the day.
Mhm.
It's always fun to be outside when you can, if you have the space to do it. I would love to set up in a park sometime, buy a couple of those plastic TV trays and get people out in a park painting. That would be fun. So I'm just dipping my brush in a little bit of water along the way. And we're going to put a lot of on top of this, as you all know. Like, we're going to be putting a full window and a flower box. So this is just a nice solid color in the background. Doesn't need to be perfectly even. You're not going to see a lot of this, but we're doing this as a nice base color. And I have a little water in my brush. I have a little bit of white, a little bit of pink. And I'm just going all the way off the edges. Can you all hear my son in the house? Can you hear a little child's voice in the background? No? Okay. He is very clear to me. I'm so glad he's not clear to you. All right. This is where we can settle in. Some of you in these classes have started using a bigger brush to fill in the background. I know that Sharon, who joins, she's like, oh yeah, I use a bigger brush. And I'm like, it's really smart, Sharon. So it doesn't take her an hour with one of these little brushes. So if anybody ever wants to use a bigger brush to like do a back coat of a color, you could always use a bigger brush. I just kind of use what I have on hand, which is, you know, this 1/2 inch. It doesn't take too long. It also gives it a minute for it to dry, right? Because we're typically painting on top of this. So sometimes by using a smaller brush, I have a little bit more control over the brush strokes, but also it gives the top a minute to dry before we move on. So I'm just working my way down to the bottom. We're doing a full coat and coverage. And if you see any wet spots, you could just do some extra brush strokes to kind of help it air out, help it dry out a little bit. Mine's nice and light. You can decide how many streaks you may have, or if it's totally solid in color. Everyone kind of has their preference on what you may want. Find my paper towel here. Let's look at the pinks from class to class. It's fairly similar in colors. That will work just fine. All right. And we did a sailboat class on Friday. Came out really fun. If anybody's interested in the recording, let me know. It was so much fun. We added seagulls to our sky and we added sailboats.
Nice.
Yep. Diane was a part of that class too.
I like the stripes on the sails.
Yeah, I had to get inspired and look up like this, like go on to Google Images and look up sail designs. It was fun to add something. All right. So I'm going to check my canvas and see how wet it is. Sometimes by holding it up into the light, you can sometimes see if it's dry or not. I think it's almost dry. I think we're doing pretty good. You can also touch it. It's a little wet on the bottom, but it's doing pretty good on top. So I'll give everyone a couple minutes. As you are working on that detail, we can just slowly talk about the next. The size of the window is pretty big, right? Look how much padding is around the window. Just this much, right? It's like a half a pinky, right? The important thing as we think about drawing our window is I want you to have space below your window box for the greenery to dangle down. That's a really fun, like whimsical part. I want you to try tonight. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but I really love this part. Think about the position of your window. If you take out those greeneries, you can see the window is positioned higher, right? It's not centered. It's positioned higher on my paper or canvas. Now I could go a little lower, right? So see how there's a lot more pink space down here? I could shift the window positioning down a little bit. So if we look at my original and I say, okay, if it's about 1 inch from the top, I could probably go 2 inches down, right? From the top to center for the top of the window. You could do that. And then you want your space on either side of the window to be like roughly the same. So maybe we'll say, let's find where the top of the window is first. If anyone has a ruler and you want to be like uber precise, like I want 2 inches all the way around the window, you could do that if you wanted to, right? But we can do this together as our next step. So I'll put that over there and we'll do a little bit of our sketching together. If folks are still working on the background, take your time and painting the background, no big deal. But I'll check in. Give me a thumbs up. Are folks pretty close to doing the sketching? Just to be courteous and check in. Okay, cool. If anyone needs more time painting the background, feel free. So I'm going to, I have a flat edge here. I'm going to use the top of this flat edge to just find the top of the window. And look at this book. It's actually the width of this book could be my window. Like, look at that. That kind of worked out perfectly. So I might cheat a little bit and center it left and right and from the top. But most importantly, let's do the top part. I'm going to come down about 2 inches, eyeballing it. And I'm going to use a pencil. And I'm going to do a line. You may not be able to see it. It's there, I promise. If you need to lay your canvas flat, you may. Let me see if my line is straight. You want your line to be straight, okay? So that's pretty straight. And my book is, the width of my book here is actually a pretty good window width. So I want you just to find what's a good distance from the edge. For me, this is probably 2.5. This is probably 2, and that's probably 2. I'm just going to use the edge of this. And I'm going to start my window shape. I'll bring it a little closer so you can see it for a minute. Now your window box, you're going to keep some pink area, more pink area on the bottom. So my window box, I'll bring this all the way down so you can see. Let me back this up a little bit. There we go. There. My window box, it's going to have some space at the bottom. So I might have 3 or 4 inches at the bottom. You can decide. So I'm just going to I want you to do one big rectangle that represents the entire window frame and the box included, the window box included. So I have one big rectangle. And I use pencil today, so apologies, I don't have a Sharpie with me, but you can see I have a pencil outline. I have this much on the side here, this much on the side here, this much on top, and I have, back this up a little bit. I have this much on the bottom because the flowers are going to hang down into this pink area. And then I like to, you can do your window box. My window box, it's not going to be too high, but you're going to do kind of a built-in rectangle for the window box. And I'll bring it a little closer. So you can determine the height of your window box. The height of the window box, it's not too big, it's not too small. It's kind of like that warm porridge that's just right for those bears. Okay. So you have a rectangle, and then you have a window box built into it. So those are the most important steps. And then we're going to do like 6 windows on the top part. But I'll let everybody get your main rectangle in first. Then you have a window box area. So I added an extra line, basically bumping up for the window box here. So we'll put our flowers on top of this window box and dangling down, right? Pretty flowers. And we'll do a 6-paneled glass window at the top. And this is pretty easy. Whatever this top space is here above your window box, I just divided this in half visually. So I don't know where halfway is. If you want to measure it and be really precise, you can. But I'm just going to find halfway and just do a horizontal line. You want this to be as straight as possible. We're going to paint on top of this.
Megan, how wide did you do the window box-ish?
It's like the size of my hand, like from my palm to my fingertips.
Okay.
The height of the window box is like
Yes.
the size of my pinky.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It's a little shorter than my pinky.
Okay.
Yep. It doesn't need to be that crazy because we're going to be filling it, and it's the window box is really just a visual in the background. So I'll show you how big the window box is here. It's not
Oh, yeah.
big.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And then once you have that window box, we're basically doing this line across the middle right here. And then we're basically dividing the window into 6 window frame, like 6 window panes.
Yeah.
So we're doing 1 across the middle, and then you're gonna do 1 and 2 vertically. And we're doing this pencil whip first, and then we'll be using black paint to outline it as our next step.
Okay.
But doing this outlining is tremendous. It's so helpful. And you can kind of do guide marks. Again, if you have a ruler, I just kind of eyeballed it. I'm doing like little guide marks at the top saying, okay, it's 1, 2, 3, pretty even. I just did little dots to say visually, does this look even? And then once my dots at the top look fairly even, I can then use my flat edge to go down straight. So just take, and if folks want to measure it, so I know some of you are really precise, take a few minutes to do that. But I'm kind of keeping it easy. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, I'm just using like a flat book of my son's, and I have a rectangular window box down here at the bottom. So I'll give everyone a minute to do that. And then we're going to outline the window in black. Like this is no more drawing after that. We'll be doing all painting after this step. All right. So we did a big rectangle, and some of you might be erasing and kind of modifying lines. Doing these dots for like placements was really helpful. So take your time with that. But I'm going to take a little bit of black paint. I'm using pure black for the window outlining. Just stands out better for me. If anybody wants to do a gray, you could do a gray. I think I did the window box on the bottom, like a little bit of a darker gray, but the window itself, you can use a small brush of choice. What number should I use here? Let's see. You could use a 1 or a 2 brush. You could use a number 3. This is a number 3 brush. I'm just going to use this. I'm going to get my brush a little bit wet. And you want a nice steady hand. Just take your time with this next step. We're just going to outline the window. I like to use my pinky to stabilize my hand. And I'm just outlining it. Maybe go back and get a little bit more paint. So be a little confident. I try doing it in a single brush stroke. If you need to like turn your canvas, not you do your thing and turn your canvas if a straight up and down line works for you. I didn't do this in my original. I should have turned my canvas. This helps. And the lines aren't going to come out perfectly even. Don't worry. You can go back in and you can refine some of these lines. Okay. There we go. And just be careful that your arm or your wrist or your fingers don't smudge these lines. If they do, it's okay, because you know you can always paint over them. But we kind of have to be a little bit more careful. All right. It's going to go nice and smooth. Just take your time with this step. It's really quite satisfying, though, to kind of build the structure and then kind of bring it to life a little bit. And I'm gonna.
Megan, this is Janice. I have a question.
Hey, Janice, sure.
So what I was trying to do is instead of outlining my window in black, I wanted to outline it in the blue that I used for my door at last month's class, because I was
Yeah.
gonna put these two pictures side by side as if this is the planter that belongs to that house.
Oh, so fun.
But my question is, the door frame, I did like a turquoise, like a picture Miami Beach kind of turquoise.
Yeah.
Like, how do I get that color
Yeah.
again?
So blue and green will make that
Okay.
color at a touch of white.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. That turquoise, I'm going on vacation, bluish green. It's such a nice color, isn't it? I love it. Cool. Yep, you got it, Janice. So this is where you can make your window frame a little wider as you wish. So if you wanted to take your brush, and I kind of made like the windows a little bit like have trim on them per se. So if you wanted to come in and like make them a little bit wider, it kind of makes them look a little bit more realistic if there's trim on them. It's up to you if you want to do this or not. I did this now just so it would dry and kind of get on. A little tricky because you're not doing like a double outline, but you can kind of use your eye. I'm doing it on the outside of the window. I'm not doing it on the interior. I'm kind of building out a little bit. So this is optional. I kind of did this spontaneously when I did my original. I'm like, it needs a little bit more heft to it. And I don't even need to do it on my window box area. We're gonna fill this to the brim anyways. If you wanted to go all the way down, let me see. On the original, I didn't really go all the way out to the edge. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. I think I did the top and the bottom. So if you wanted to do that, you could. Kind of think of a width. And you could do the same thing with the inner window panes too. If you wanted to make them a little bit wider, you could. And I'm putting pressure on this brush when I'm painting, and it's actually expanding the bristles and giving me a wider brush stroke. So the more you use these brushes, you'll figure out how to kind of change the brush stroke along the way, which is kind of fun. These are not perfectly straight, ladies and gents. I'm just having fun with it. They're good enough. If any of you are really precise and you want to use a ruler to do like a full second line, go for it. I'm not doing that tonight. Take a deep breath. Enjoy this time for yourself. I'm so glad that you're with us. If anyone thinks of any fun 4th of July inspirations, please shoot me a note. I thought it'd be fun to do a 4th of July theme. You can see how it kind of adds a little bit of oomph. I'm not worrying about this bottom window pane kind of trim area because we're going to put so many darn flowers down there, you're not even going to know. But I might just do make these a little thicker, just a little bit. Maybe a little straighter in some areas. Try not to hit your elbow in your paint like me. I'm having a messy day. It's all right. I changed my shirt. Hopefully I don't get it on my pants.
Well, that's the thing about acrylics, right?
I know. I know. All right. So you can make choices on like where you want these window panes to be more thick or not. And you can always use pink to kind of touch up. It's really not going to matter that much because we're going to fill the windows with a little bit of, I'll call it frosting, even though it's not winter. A little bit of texture in these windows. It's a little abstract, and I did it really without thinking about it in the original, but it came out really cool. So I'm gonna do it again and I'll coach you through it. But we're gonna do it after the black. But this is just to really make the window stand out a little bit more. And I'm not really going to touch this bottom horizontal. So I'll give you all another couple minutes just to play with this window. And then we'll do a little bit of the gray. I am going to fill in the window box on the bottom. It's going to be more black on the bottom, and I'm going to make it a little bit more gray on the top. So if you wanted to paint your window box in, you could. And I'm going to do, let's see, where's my white paint? I kind of did a gray on the top of the window box, and it kind of gradients down to a black, just to kind of give it a little bit of depth instead of just a flat color. So I'm just going to mix a dark gray. And I'll show you really quick what I'm talking about. I actually had it darker than that in the original. Kind of went from a darker gray to a lighter gray on the top. So I'll let you play with this. Does not need to be blended perfectly. It could be a little, we're going to put a lot of flowers on top of this, but you can see I kind of did a little bit of a gradient here. You can play with that. If you need to come back in with your black and make this a little more clean, you could totally do that too. So you could play with your blending your gray gradients here if you wished. A little bit of black at the bottom, and I'm kind of blending it up and in.
Did you mix any water in with that? Megan?
No, no water, just paint.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. I'll show you my palette though. I kind of have I have a little bit of gray here. I have like a dark gray and a light gray, and I have my black right here. So I can kind of play with those three tones kind of in one little space.
Gotcha.
So like the top here is a little lighter. So I need to get a little bit of the lighter gray to kind of fill this corner. You wanted to use your finger to kind of smudge it in. If you feel like getting messy, you could do that. You can experiment with your grays. I'll come in and bring in a little bit more black. So all good. Yeah. It kind of gives it a little bit of a realistic look, that it's not just like a single color. Makes it look a little bit more natural. And I can let it dry and I can think about it. It could be a little darker. It's also better if you, I should do a better job of blending these colors before I put them on my palette. Let's see here. So I can come in and just make sure everybody's in class here. Nobody's waiting. All right, we're good. I know some folks couldn't make it, but so glad that you're all here. Let's see. I'm going to make the bottom of this window just a little darker. That contrast was important to me. So I'm going to just mix a little bit of this darker grayish black just to make sure it's nice and dark here at the bottom. Even bring in a little bit more of this black. You can let it dry and you can come back to this space too. And if you wanted to use a bigger brush, I'm using a small brush, which is probably not to my advantage right now, but I'm just gonna let it dry. There's a little bit of a reflection, but that's that right there. And I'll come in and give this a nice clean black line before we're done. So I want you to be happy with the window framing. I want you to be happy with the lines and the windows. Now we're gonna have some fun in just a minute. We're gonna mix a light gray color and we're gonna add a little pizzazz to the inside of these windows. And if you're not done this bottom window box gradient, don't worry about that. Not a big deal. I'm mixing a light gray color. And I'm using a small brush. I have a 3 in my hand. We're going to use 2 tones of gray. We're going to use this like a lighter gray. I might even need to add a little bit of white to this. And then a gray that's a little bit darker. But we'll do the lighter gray first. And I'll show you what this looks like so you kind of know where we're going. If you don't want to do this part, you don't have to. But I kind of did a little floating frame, like a floating rectangle in the center of each of these window panes to give it this little bit of like glass look. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. It will kind of bring your window to life a little bit. If you wanted to use like a touch of blue to make it have a blue tint, you could. I'm just using grays today. So we'll be doing this like light gray first, and then we'll be adding this darker gray touch after. So find a nice light gray color. I'm going to mix it with you. And I want you can paint all the way inside of the pink. I did like a floating kind of rectangular shape. And mine wasn't like a perfect rectangle. I was being a little abstract. I kind of took a little bit of like an impressionistic approach to the inspiration today. But this is a pretty easy part. You can kind of just pick a square, and on the interior, kind of just do a floating rectangle. And then I fill it in. That's it. It's kind of fun and easy. You can go as close to the black edge if you want. You could have a little fun here and put a little bit of white on your brush and see kind of how it goes. But you're going to fill this in. If you want to be really abstract, you can bring in some of the dark paint as you go too, which is kind of fun. So if you wanted to bring in some darker gray to kind of do some filling it in. I think that's what I did in the original. I kind of brought both in at the same time, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So in these classes, I'll always give you different options. You can try what you're comfortable with, but see how the dark gray kind of adds a little bit of shading. I kind of did like a little L. I kind of did like a little bit of an interior, and they're all a little different, but the biggest thing is that base color gray is good first. But if you wanted to do both at the same time, you could. But I'm just going to repeat this step. I do have a little bit of a pink buffer between the black window frame. Kind of holds and maintains a little bit of brightness for me. I don't know why I like it. If you don't want that there, you don't have to keep it there. It's a choice you can make. But at any time during these classes, I'll always encourage you to kind of be yourself. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm just here to give you lots of kooky ideas along the way. And these are not perfectly even. I'm really just having fun with it. These interiors are just like little shades and shadows that kind of just happen within the window. Again, it's a little impressionistic. It's a little abstract. So you can decide if that's something you want to do, but it's kind of a two-tone color for the inside of these windows. And I'll probably come in and I'll refine it a little bit, but I'm just having fun. And sometimes this is a really low risk way to kind of let loose and try being abstract if you are willing. Or you could be really exact and kind of punctual. So either works. But you can see the difference that it makes. It takes these like boring pink windows and it really brings it a little bit of light into place. And you can always bring in a little bit of pink too. Like if I get a little close to the edge over here, I can always bring in a little bit of that pink if I need to kind of brighten it if you have any of that pink left, which I do. And again, I can bring in some of the dark shading characteristics. I kind of do the L, like a backwards L. Maybe I'll do the top left corner and the bottom right corner. Just with a darker gray. It's pretty messy tonight, so I'll probably come in and do a little bit of refinement. But these are just details in the distance, so it's fairly abstract, but do what you're comfortable with. You're probably going to need to mix more paint along the way, like I am. So just take your time with this step. I am going to keep us moving because the flowers take a little bit of time too. All right. So I'm just mixing a little bit more of this gray to fill in my bottom three. Let's see here. And these lines, again, they can be as clean and clear as you wish. That's why it's kind of good to do the outlining first. Nice clean outline. And then just filling it in. That's the easiest way. So if I just fill this in entirely first, I can bring in the dark after. So I'll do this window this way. I'll go nice and slow. I'll fill this in entirely. You can play with your brush strokes. My brush strokes are not perfect and refined for this step. And I'll show you how messy they are. I'll bring it really close so you all can judge me and say, Megan, you're getting a little wild and crazy over there. I'll show you what that looks like. Because it's kind of fun sometimes to do something outside the box. So let me see here. Okay, I'm going to bring in the dark on top. Because seeing the brush stroke sometimes, especially with something like this, it's kind of cool. So I'm going to bring it close so y'all can see all my crazy brush strokes. But when you bring it back, right, it looks different when you bring it afar. It kind of gives it a little texture. Like the window isn't so clean. Imagine that. Summer's here. There's dirt on the windows. Maybe that's my interpretation. If you don't like the way this looks, again, you don't have to do it. But I did the lighter gray and then I just a little darker gray outlining. And I'll do a nice clean dark line down here at the bottom. And I'm just going to clean my brush along the way. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But we are going to layer in so much color and so many flowers. We're going to be covering up like these bottom three windows. Our flowers are going to cover up, not a lot of this, but we're still going to see the windows, but we'll see less of them because we're going to put so many flowers on top. We're going to go a little flower crazy. If anybody's done like outdoor class, like, field classes or flower classes with me, we go a little grass crazy within our fields. We're going to go a little flower crazy today. We're going to be filling in our window boxes. So the flowers are just bursting at the seams, and we'll take a little bit of an abstract approach, but it's going to fill our window box nicely. And if you would like to have very specific flowers, it may take you longer than an hour and a half or 2 hours. Like, let's just be honest with each other, right? So if you're going to have very specific flowers and very specific parts, you can do that. It's a component of this class where it's a choice you can make, and you can be very specific with your shaping. But I'll show you another fun way of doing that tonight. That's a little bit more abstract, but you still have very specific flower placement in areas. So I'm just looking at the shaping of this gray area. You can come in with a small gray brush and just do some refinements. But take your time and enjoy the process. But I really like this gray. What do y'all think? Is anybody doing a blue? Or are folks doing gray?
Gray. It's funny, yours almost looks turquoise.
Oh,
Oh,
really? Maybe with the
yeah.
lighting?
It must be the lighting.
Yeah. I'm in a porch right now with windows.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the natural lighting, but there's no blues. I'm using black and white only right now.
It's actually pretty.
Yeah, interesting. I can see it does look a little blue with on Zoom, but I don't know why.
Mhm.
So that's a consideration, right? Like if folks wanted to put a blue tint, I'm sure it would look pretty actually, right? If you wanted to do a blue tint, but if not, no big deal. Filling in these windows, I am going up and down and all around because that's giving my window texture. And that could be scary for some. I get it. But I'm kind of just doing an interior rectangle. And it's different for every window. That's okay. Being a little abstract about it. You can, if the edging is important to you for these, you can do clean edging and you can do the interior a little abstract. That's good. You can make some of those choices. Again, these bottom windows, like down here, it is going to be so covered with flowers. So maybe cover your hand and say, okay, do I want to make any modifications to the top windows? Because the bottom ones, you're going to be covering up a lot. So it's kind of a fact checker. But I love doing like keeping some of the pink. Can you see the brightness that it maintains within the windows? It's just a little bit, it maintains a little bit of brightness kind of glowing through. So I really like that. I'm going to take a little bit of black paint and just do a nice clean line. Look at that. At the bottom of that window. And like, that's it for the window. I'm not going to go too crazy. I'm going to give you all, I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'll check in with you in 2 solid minutes just to see how you're doing. I do want to be mindful of time for our flowers, but take a few more minutes and play with the window. If anybody needs help, please let me know, but I'd love to see how everybody's doing too. All right. And I have lots of fun textures and colors. Ooh. It is humid.
It is.
All right. I'm here with my cat Kokomo too. Come here, Coco. You guys can meet Kokomo while we're all painting your windows. Come here. Come here. Okay, come here. Oh, she is so meowy. Kokomo is 10 years old and she's a little chubby, but she's really nice. Say hi, Coco. Look at all the people. Look. Nice girl.
She's like, my cat won't look at the screen. Some cats get on and they're like, no, my cat's like this. No, she's not going to look at anybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I'm messy today, so I'm going to go get another paper towel, ladies, but you all keep working on that window and I'll be right back. All right. Okay. So I'm so curious, did anyone pick a different color background for the building? I know that Janice has a plan in place with her blue window frame, but I'd love to hear how folks are doing.
I did yellow.
Yellow, and a nice light yellow, so pretty.
Yeah.
I did kind of like you, but I did a teeny bit of coral backdrop so that it could match my other painting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
so pretty. I know. I love that color of the house you did with I was the gardening, the flower
Yep,
pot.
and I wanted to kind of put these beside each other, so I wanted them to blend.
I love it. Oh,
Mm.
I love it so much. Oh, a series. That would be some commitment in the future, ladies and gents, doing a series. Woo. Nice.
So I don't know, can you see the yellow? Is it
I
showing?
can see the yellow. Did you do like a purple or a blue inside your window?
No, but it's the grays. That's what yours looks like.
Really?
Yeah,
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It looks really nice.
yeah, no, it's the
Awesome.
white and gray.
Huh? Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I mean, mine's a little darker, which is fine.
Now yours looks gray when you hold it up, but when
Oh,
you were,
like from this angle?
yeah, when you were painting, it had a bluish
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. It might have been the light. There's like direct light coming in this way.
Yeah, it's cool.
Beautiful, Diane. That is ever so precise and perfect. I love it. Oh, so pretty. All right. Perfect. Let's see. Susan, very nice. Susan did a big window. Susan, I don't know.
Yeah.
Susan did a nice big window.
My windows on top ended up
Terry,
smaller.
your windows are so precise. Your windows are much
Wow,
cleaner
look at
looking than mine today. Terry, that's beautiful. Oh, beautiful. Terry, what color did you do for your building? Is it like a gray or blue?
I did the light pink, but I remember the other time when we did the porch deck, it was kind of a gray. So I'm thinking I might put gray slats in it.
Ooh,
afterwards. So
I love
kind of
that.
like that was a good idea to match it with the other picture.
I know.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
this is inspired creativity. All from Janice tonight. I like that.
Good. That's good.
That's why we're here. We're here to get ideas from each other. Perfect. All right, let me check in. I want folks to take your time. You all need another minute or two for your windows, or give me a thumbs up if you're pretty close. Okay, I don't want to rush you. Perfect. I think we're all fairly at the same pace here. Okay, so this is where things get a little kooky. So we have our window in place and we have our window box and it's all empty right now. And now we're going to fill it with glory and bliss. So we're going to use green. And if any of you are gardeners out there, there is thrilling of flowers, there is filling of flowers, and there is the spilling, right? Window boxes, flower pots, stuff like that. I wish that my flowers look like that. They don't. That's my inspiration someday. However, we're going to try to do that today together. So the first step is look at these tall, like lupin style, hollyhock style, pointy ones. We're going to do green, long lines, and then we're going to fill those with flowers. So we're going to do our thrilling flowers first. Then we're going to fill with lots of pretty flowers. And then we're going to do the spilling as our third step. Make sense? Okay. So easy. We're going to mix a green color of choice. I don't have a green with me, so I'm going to use my primaries. So it's going to be like 85% yellow with a touch of blue. So I have yellow. And I'm just kind of putting these, I'm going to kind of leave a gap. So I did a little tiny dollop of blue here. We're not going to use a lot of blue tonight. So you can be mindful of how much you might want to put on your plate, but I have yellow. And we'll use quite a bit of green because in the spilling of the foliage, we're going to be doing a light green and a dark green. So if you mix a bunch of green, it's okay. We'll probably use it. And I'm going to grab like a smallish style brush for our like long pointy green stalks per se. This is a 2/0 fraction brush. You could go up to like a 1 or a 2. Let's see what this one is. This is a mystery brush. There's no number on it, but it looks like a 1. So I'm going to try that. But you don't want it to have, you want it to be fairly pointed. This brush isn't perfect, but I'm just going to get some water on it. You can also kind of, you want it to have somewhat of a point on it. This one's not perfect, but I think it will work. And I'm going to use this to mix the green. So I'll bring this over here and we can mix this color together. You can go for like a grass green if you want. But But I'm just gonna take a small dollop of the blue and I'm just gonna mix it right within the yellow. I know I'll use all of this. So I'm gonna just mix this as the green. This yellow is not the yellow that I typically send in my kits. This is like a Blick, like basic a craft paint yellow. So it's a little more mustardy, but I'm just gonna bring in the blue. Looks a little yucky, but I'm just gonna keep mixing. If it looks a little mucky yellow, it means I just need a little bit more blue. So just take a few minutes, find the green that you like. If you're fancy and you have a fancy paint set with lots of colored greens, you could jump in and use what you have. I am not fancy tonight. See, I added a little more blue and it's finally turning a little bit of like a grass light green. That's kind of what more that I want. So I'm just adding a little blue at a time, being patient with the process. Mixing, mixing, mixing. It's a little bit more grass green. It looks a little more brown in the picture in the over zoom, but it's grass green in person. This is fine color, especially I'm going to paint over a lot of it. This is just to give me some stalks. So I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to roll it. Paint management. You guys probably been hearing me talk about paint management a lot. I don't have a ton of paint on this brush. It's really contained. What you're going to do is, and I might need to downsize brushes, but I'm going to start at the top of my flower box and I'm going to add some stalks. So I'm going to add 4 or 5 per window, like area. So, and these are going to be fairly straight. You can have them bend a little bit. Like that's very straight. You can make some kind of bend over. Kind of like they're leaning. So you could call them like grass blades. Some are higher, some are lower. So I would do like 3 or 4 per section. So I just did 4 right here. We're going to cross over this black window pane. We're going to put a lot of flowers in here. And I'm coming up over this middle window pane, this trim piece. And I'm kind of coming up and I'm doing a little bit of a flick. So this is tall stalks of flowers that we're going to fill with pretty things. Some are shorter, some are taller, but we definitely want some taller ones in because this is our thrilling. These are our thrill. And the more of these you add, the more flowers you're going to have to add. So you don't need too many. Let's see. I did 4 over here. I did like 3 in here. So maybe I'll just do 1 more, like kind of, but I'm visually kind of filling this space. These are the tallest flowers in our window. So I want you to keep in mind, these are the tallest flowers. We're going to have many that are going to be filled in this middle section, but these are going to be tall, stocky flowers that are going to rise above. So you can determine on how high you want these to be. These look really pretty because you're going to be doing alternating colors of flowers on these stalks, but the window, you're still going to see the window from behind. So it's a nice accent. If you want to add in like little kind of green dots and foliage at the bottom of these, like there's little bits of flowers, you can do little dots down here. We're going to add a lot of flowers, but this might just help starting to fill the space. So maybe we have, imagine this is spring and all these are just starting to grow. This is just going to start to fill the space for us. So if you wanted to do a little bit of, this is just green dotting, just to start to fill the window box. We're going to cover up a lot of this, but this is just to kind of get us going. A little bit of a reflection, but this is just starting to fill it in. Just kind of fun. We're really going to bring our window box alive. You can kind of, you could do a little bit of spilling and thrilling, but you don't have to do too much right now. But this is, these are all good. It's all going to dry and this is a great base coat for some of those other flowers we're going to put in, but just get those stalks in. This green is pretty, I'm not incredibly happy with the green, but it's going to get covered quite a bit. So I'm not worried about it too much. I might add a little bit more blue, but get those stalks in. And I'm just changing the color a little bit. If you wanted to do a second coat, you could. You don't have to. I'm kind of changing the color of these a little bit.
What did you do to get the lower ones? I was too busy doing my stalks to
You're okay.
notice.
I just did like little dotting like this, just like little dots, just kind of filling this in, just like pretending like it's like little bits of flowers just starting to grow, maybe filling in some green. Just little, it's just like like dotting and smudging. Yeah. And I made my green a little bit more blue because it was a little too yucky green. And I just added a little bit more blue, and I'm just kind of outlining these stalks again. The stalks are light in color, and that's okay because we are going to put so much color on top of this. It's not a big deal. But this is just to kind of we're starting the composition and the placement of our flower box, like, and of the flowers inside. And you can always add more, but I'm going to give that a minute to dry. Again, patience, giving it a minute to dry. If you wanted to, you could do a little bit of the greens coming down. It's not going to hurt anything right now. I might add, since we're letting this dry, it might be a good in-between step to add some of the other greens coming down. I might add a little bit of white nearby to this. So I'm mixing a little bit of white with this green, just so it stands out on top of that black window box. So if anybody wants to make like this sage green with me, if you wanted to do some of the drooping down ones, this will kind of get you started. Especially as those other ones are drying, you could pivot with me. This is just kind of like a light sage green. We're going to be adding dark and light green to our spilling green foliage, which is really pretty. So by doing these lighter colors first, it allows us to add the darker greens on top. It's a little backwards, but it helps get the lighter one down because the window box is darker. And we're going to, again, do lots of layering. But one of the things you can do is this, I think this is a #1 brush. Imagine doing little tiny dots of leaves, and I'll go nice and slow. And they're just they're just starting just to fall down. Just ever so, and maybe it splits. Imagine these are beautiful, kind of green-like leaves. And you got to be a little imaginative. Imagine it's ivy. It's just kind of hanging and just dangling down. These are all just base colors, so just take it with a grain of salt, but you can see what this starts to do. And again, this is just an in-between step. You want to use your eye, create some space. They're not all touching each other, but they're kind of falling off on one another, kind of like how a tree branch splits. Imagine these little leaves, kind of like ivy kind of hanging down, and it splits. Just use your imagination. And lean back in your chair, and you can just start to, this is again a light green. I'm going to add in other greens to this. You could even add like flowers into some of this greenery if you wanted to, which is kind of fun. And these can hang down as far as you want, which is kind of fun. And over. See how this one's kind of like popping up and over. Maybe I have a little green popping over here. but we're gonna bring in other greens. So I'm not gonna do too much, but I'll just show you a little bit. You're gonna just dabble some other greens on top of the light, just with the tip of your brush. I'm not doing full brush strokes. Mine's like very minty looking. It's not gonna be that way. I'm gonna add other colors to it. I'm gonna add darker colors, darker greens to this too. But art is an evolution, as we've learned in our classes, and it's just about starting somewhere. But lean back in your chair as you go and look at your shapes. Try to have some gaps, but see where these want to spread. You still want to see the window box. See where you have a gap. See where you have a nice space. And I'm just doing a little bit of this other green, just dotting on top of it. We'll add even a darker contrasting green after, but this is just an example of kind of where we're going. And we're being strategic. We're letting all of these stalks dry up on top. But just enjoy the process. If you want to connect them with like a little brush stroke, you could. It's absolutely up to you. You can kind of connect them with like a little swoop. A little swoop, you could connect them. Doesn't have to be all dots, so I could just do little kind of brush strokes. Look at that with this green paint, just to kind of connect them. That's okay. Just little swoops just to kind of connect them together. See how the darks and the lights start to work together? And kind of just follow the brush down. And this is such a good example of kind of using two colors at once, because they start to blend together a little bit, which is kind of fun. It's a little tricky, but if you have the patience and you just try to go for it, you can see I'm creating that green kind of hanging down. It's not done, but it's a good starting place. I can make it a little bit more filled out in areas, kind of like closer down here. I can do more dotting to make it look more full, right? Anywhere there's too much gray, you can just do some more dotting to make it look more full. We're going to put in so many more flowers, but this is kind of a fun way to kind of get the green settled in for the foliage piece, right? All flowers have foliage. So we're not going to go too crazy, but I wanted just to show you while the stalks are drying. And I'll bring this a little closer. I did dotting and then I did some kind of connecting lines. And you can see I went off the edge of the windowsill on the left and the right. Kind of makes it look like it's overfilling and spilling a little bit. So you can consider that. And some of yours might look a little sticky. Don't worry. Just try filling them out. There's a couple extra little dots here and there to make them look like little leaves. They're just kind of popping out a little further. That might help fill it in a little visually for you. It's kind of like when you're first learning how to do tree branches. Figuring out how to fill in a tree branch to make it look natural. Very similar to kind of adding in that foliage. A little bit anyways. Similarities. I also was had to be mindful in the original that I did about how far I came down. Some of these look still very stick-like. I'm not worried about it right now because I'll come in and add more. I'm being mindful as an artist to not overdo it down here right now because we have a lot more work to do, if that makes sense. Okay. So I'm just going to clean off my brushes, and to be mindful of time, we could spend like many hours on this painting, which I'm sure many of you are realizing pretty quickly here. I'm going to grab a small brush of choice, and we can add some flowers to the stalks of our these stalks we created. So I did different alternating colored flowers for those stalks. I did light pink. I did a medium pink. I did red. So I'm going to start with red because it's pretty punchy. So pick a color that you want to start with. I have a 2/0 fraction brush. And I'm going to start by just alternating from one side to the other. Now, these are stalks of flowers, so you can do little dabs, you can do big dabs, you can figure out how you want to fill these stalks. But I want you to fill them all the way down. And maybe I want to keep these colors balanced throughout my window box. So for me, I am going to do kind of red in different spaces. So you could do the points of these stalks, the points of these flowers just kind of pointed upwards. You can do little dots. You could do big dots. You could do, it's really just use your eye. Definitely be sure to put some of the color in the middle of the stalk. You don't want to just do it on the sides. You want to do it in the middle too. So it shows the eye to the viewer that you are, it's like, it's a natural form. It's in the middle of it too. So that's a red color. I don't know what it looks like on Zoom, but that's red, pure red. Lighting's kind of funky. So that's red. And I might just do a little bit more red. Maybe I'll create like a faux stalk over here. I want you to spread your colors out visually. And maybe I'll do a couple of like little red flowers start to be tucked in. You can use the tip of the brush. Gonna look like dahlias a little bit. This is where we start to do our layering, ladies and gents. So you can do big flowers. So for me, I have red in my hand. So I'm like, I'm going to use red as my first flower layering. And I'm doing little dots of red here and there in random places because this is a window box. There are going to be flowers everywhere. So look how spontaneous I was in all the areas that I added red. It's so much brighter. I'm going to put another light on this to see if it helps for you to see the color. Let's see if this light helps. So we're going to do one color at a time as we add to our window box. Ooh, there we go. Now you can see some of those colors. Now let me see if I can adjust the height of this as well for you. All right. Perfect. So there's the red. That's some good lighting for you. Let's see. Okay. So I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to do basic colors and then you can come in and do more. So this is where you pick and choose what color you want for your flowers. So I'm going to give you a little inspiration. Look how much flowers we're going to be adding. We're going to go a little crazy, okay? So jump on this crazy wild train with me here. We're going to go for another color next. I'm going to have you mix like a pink color. So I have a light pink on my palette and I have a red. I'm going to take my red and I'm going to mix it with this light pink I have to kind of give it a medium tone pink. This is kind of like a, I don't want to say a hot pink color, but a hot pink. And I'm going to put some flowers. Maybe I'll do a couple stalks. Maybe I'll do some flowers. Let's see. Pick and choose. Pick your next color and do the same thing. But you can choose what flowers you want to do. But this is lots of layering. So it's, ladies and gents, we just got to go a little flower crazy, as I mentioned. If you want to do kind of rounded kind of rose-like flowers. This, I didn't do this in the original, but you can kind of do some rounded like flowers, kind of like these are roses, kind of like they can kind of swoop around themselves. You can do different style flowers. You can bring in other colors to kind of bring them to life. But try doing some big ones and some small ones. That one of the things that will make your painting look realistic. Maybe I'll bring in a little bit of a lighter color. Play with how you want to fill your window box. I'm bringing in a little bit of light pink and with this medium pink just to kind of bring these flowers to life. Play with mixing flower colors. Let's see. This is where you can get some of those depth techniques. Light and dark is the contrast that will bring these flowers to life for you. I'm using different colors. I'm dipping a little pink and a little bit of the light pink in at the same time, and I'm getting these really cool colors. See how I'm using a dark and a light pink to really bring them to life? Could try that. Just getting in the zone, and I want you to build this any way that you want. So I'm just gonna kind of use my eye, and I want you to add small and large, lots of little dots here and there. Build out, and I'm using just the tip of my brush. Look at these kind of look like little roses, which is kind of, I love mini roses. It's probably one of my most favorite flowers. These look like lots of little colors, and I love that we put the green in there because you can start to see how our window box is filling already. But you have to just kind of be mindful to add a little bit here and a little bit there. Just coming in and sometimes doing a second coat of a color, especially with these lights and darks, will really make them stand out. And I might do some light pink stalks. I'm gonna add some purples and yellows too, don't you all worry. Purple is coming. But since I have the pinks going right now, I'm just gonna kind of go a little pink crazy. If you end up painting something you don't like, you can always paint over it. We talk about that in all these classes, but the same thing goes for this one. If you have too many pink flowers and you want to mix it up, you can always make a pink flower or purple flower. It doesn't matter. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. You can see I'm just filling these stalks. And I'm looking around. I have lots of pink, maybe a little bit more, again, thinking of contrast. A light pink within the green is really nice. So you can kind of just do a little dab here and there. Think about increasing the height of your window box height. Sometimes you can see the flowers are really fairly low. You could bring more flowers kind of higher up and it will make your window box look more full. So I can bring some more height up, and I'm doing with a lighter color right now. But you can see how it increased the height of the window box because of that. Let's see, I got a little more red. You can always do a second coat of red in areas. So this is an evolution. It's kind of a wild ride that we kind of all go at our own pace here, which is good. But I want you to use light and dark colors. And I want you to try to sprinkle the colors throughout your window box. Pretend you're Martha Stewart and you know what you're doing here. And you have your flowers and your colors perfectly placed. It's a fun challenge to think about with a balance of color to the eye. And use big and small colors, big and small shapes for these flowers. I'm gonna mix a little purple, blue. I have blue and red, and a little bit of white will soften that for me. And I did the yellow and the orange last. It was kind of like my wow color I did at the end. If you wanted to do a yellow or orange now, you certainly could, but I'm just going to make a purple. If you wanted to add more leafy greens, you could do that. I'll do greens at the end. So my intent is for us to focus on our reds and pinks. I'm pretty happy with my reds and pinks right now. I can always add more, but I'm mixing a purple. My purple's pretty dark. I'll show it to you. It's right here. I'm going to see if this is too dark. I think I used dark and light purple on my last painting. So maybe I'll start with the dark and I'll do light purple accents on top. That could be really pretty. Ooh, purple is so pretty. I think so. I remember some of you love your purples too. So I'm going to do a little purple, kind of alternating these stalks. Kind of tuck your purple in. I'm going to do dark purple first, and then I'll do some light purple accents on top of the dark purple, which would be really pretty. It'll make it really pop. Oh, I'm just going to tuck in some purple flowers here and there too. Because hey, why not? AKA a little dab will do you, a little purple. And then I can mix a little bit of white with my purple to make a lighter accent. So it's really easy to kind of start with a base color and then make it darker or lighter by adding white or the dark or black. But I'm not doing black. I'm just going to add a little white. I'm going to do a little touch. Oh, this is so pretty. You all need to see this. This is where I get excited about these details. A little tiny touch of light purple on the inside of these stalks. And you could do this technique with anything. You could do it with your reds. Depends on just what you want to do as the artist. This is where we could all spend a lot of time painting our art. You can spend as much time or as little as you wish. How's this going for everyone? Are you being open-minded? You're all creating this beautiful scene together. Are you all finding this difficult or easy, or it's just happening? Tell me how it's going. Janice is in the zone. We're not going to interrupt Janice right now. Jenny, how's it going for you? We'll check in with you first.
Yeah, it's just kind of happening.
It does, isn't it? It's a kind of happening scene.
I love it. It's starting to fill in.
Yeah, filling in is the name of the game. You kind of lean back and reflect of like, where else do I need flowers? Do I need to increase the height by adding in more flowers? Like, it's truly a name of evolution. Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Love it. All right. So I'm just gonna keep on working. Let's see. So I'm pausing and reflecting just as many of you are. You may notice that you need a second coat in areas. That's totally normal. So today's class, we could, easily spend 2 or 3 hours on. If an area is getting dry, like some of my pink areas are they're a little light in color. Come in and just add another little touch of color on top. Could be a lighter color, it could be the same color, it could be a darker color. That's where we can have fun with some of these accents.
My reds are reminding me of gladiolas.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
The way they're coming out.
Yeah, and if folks, you might have certain flowers in mind, like if it's a petunia or if it's a pansy. I'm not being that specific today, but you may have certain flowers that you enjoy. I may do some like bigger, might mix a little bit of a little red and pink. I might go for a little bit bolder or a rich red and pink. I love this. I did a lot of these in the other one. I'm just gonna add some bigger flowers just to like show you what it looks like to add some bigger ones, just kind of tucked in here or there. So I'm just doing kind of like circular areas to kind of add in some bigger ones. And just finding the right color. I also got a little crazy in the last class. I was like mixing white and pink on my brush at the same time for some like funky blending. So I'll be a little courageous, except I'm all out of white. Let me get a little bit more white. It's kind of like blending two thick colors at the same time without them totally pre-mixed. Make sure if I can do it here.
Was doing that on some of the bigger flowers on the
Yeah, like
bottom.
just swirling like a couple of like a little bit of white and pink mixed in. Just kind of adds a little bit of texture. But the nice thing to keep in mind is that the contrast is what works for this. So having the lighter and the darker contrast really help kind of keep it on track. That's why the lighter pinks help with the darker pinks and the reds. So I can kind of keep in mind bringing in white in areas where it may just get a little too blended. Or even bringing in a little purple. And we will tuck in some green, dark green leaves as well to really add more contrast. I would say that I want you to be happy with the amount of flowers you have, and then we can kind of really make things pop with some dark green. But think about how high these flowers go for you in this filling area. You could even make a dark red if folks really want to try something new. I'll bring in a little bit of dark red just to show you what it's like to add a little bit of an additional shaded color. Because this is where the contrast really happens. So I'm just going to mix, this is kind of like a dark purple even. But I could come in here and I could add in some darker contrast to even outline some of these flowers if I wanted to. Add a darker red contrast to the red flowers. A little on the, if you want to get really specific, on the underside of some of these red towers, you could put a little bit of a darker red underneath them. There's so much you can do. Just incorporate your own ideas. I always love experimenting, as you know, but follow your intuition. And look around. I have two stalks, maybe three, that need something on it. So make sure all your stalks have flowers on them. My filling is pretty good. I'll add some more green in there. But just take your time. And let's see, maybe a little bit of this pink. Make sure you don't have too much water on your brush. I'm not really using a lot of water at all. I really need this thick paint to like sit and hold. If you want to add different flowered styles of flowers than I did, you're welcome to do that. Maybe these will be a little bit more wispy. Could add some wispy flowers in. These are kind of a little longer. Happy little mistake that I'm creating here. All right. Little wispy. some of my pinks. I can kind of see the window pane behind, so I'm going to do an extra coat on some of these pinks. So this is where like the refinement happens, right? Where you may need to add an extra coat here or there to really make them stand out or become a little bit more bold. So for me, some of my light pinks are kind of fading in, and I need that lighter contrast. So I'm going to come in and make those a little brighter in areas. I love having some of those white pops. I think I added little white flowers maybe in my other one too. So just lean back in your chair and say, what do I need and where? That's the reflection component. If anyone needs help, please let me know. Have fun with this. And we will add some darker green contrast. So green will be kind of one of our final areas to really refine. We're just focusing on those, the flower colors. I feel like I have lots of pinks and reds and purples. I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to do some yellows and oranges. And then I'll switch to my greens as my final step. But go at your own pace. I'm going to put a little yellow on my palette, a small dollop. And again, don't hesitate to switch brushes. If you need to use a smaller brush, don't hesitate to downsize. Sometimes that reminder is helpful that you can downsize. And I'm first going to start by making an orange. And then I'll do yellow as an accent on top of the orange because I want the yellow to stand out on top of the orange as like a touch, as like a detail to the orange flowers. And I'm mixing in orange right now. It's yellow and a touch of red. Jenny with her fancy paints probably already has an orange.
No, I haven't gotten it out yet.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm here to show you. I love the orange. It reminds me of a marigold. So, all right, I'm gonna put you all on mute for just 1 second. One moment. I'll be right back. All right, so I have a little bit of this orange, and this orange reminds me of a marigold, which I love marigolds. They're like such a hardy flower. You can think about where you might want to put this. The orange for me needs a little bit of white to really like stand out on top of all these other colors. So I'm adding a little bit of white. It's going to turn it into like a creamsicle color, but this is just to kind of give it a base to hold on top of the other colors. The white helps kind of cover it. And then I can go back in and I can make it pretty. And if you want to do little tiny brush strokes for like petals and leaves, you could. Let's see. Let me lean back in my chair and figure out where I want to put my little orange flowers. And I'll do just like maybe a 1, 2, 3 brush stroke. You can be as deliberate with your flower shapes as you wish, or you could be abstract. And your flowers can layer on top of other flowers. So it's okay to put a color over another color. You could put all your orange flowers, if you're doing orange or yellow, in one spot, or you could kind of sprinkle them throughout. It's totally up to you. So I just did a little sprinkling of this creamsicle orange. I'm gonna let it dry intentionally. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more yellowy orange to the tops of those to really make them stand out a little bit more. So again, I'm just taking my time. I'm working with what I have. We're really just kind of creating a piece that's meaningful to you. So please take your time. But this is a really beautiful, it's really like a very personal painting, I think. Very personal. And we'll do greens as our final step. But I might take a little bit of my orange, my yellow, while my orange is a little wet. You could just sprinkle in a little bit of yellow and you'll see how that will really start to just jump out. So you can choose what colors you want to use. If you wanted to do orange instead of yellow, you could. I like the vibrancy of the yellow personally. It's kind of a yellowish orange. It's a little bit of brightness. We want to have light and dark color. So maybe if these flowers are too dark, maybe you need to make it like a light yellow, like a canary yellow. That would be a beautiful addition to this, doing a light yellow flower. So you can keep that in mind too. I could even do a little light yellow dot on the top of these flowers. So this is just like imagination and creativity at its best, where you can do anything you want. Using these tiny brushes, you have the utmost control to add any detail. But I'm going to let mine dry for a minute. But you can see how just a little yellow really made those flowers jump right out.
That's beautiful.
Just a little touch here and there. And it's really, I did a little shaping of petal-like shapes, but it's really abstract. And I'll bring it close so you can see how abstract my brush strokes really are. You can see I'm very thoughtful of dark colors and light colors, and then a few bright colors, right? So I have my dark reds, I have a medium tone pink, I have a light pink, and I've used white accents with some of my pink flowers. And then I have my purples. I have some dark purples, and I did a little bit of a light purple accent on my purple flowers. Now, one of the things I did in the last class was I had actually more flowers. They came up higher. My filling came a bit higher and it actually came out the side of the window. So this is one thing that made my last picture more realistic, is I had the flowers come off of the window on the left and I had the flowers come off the window on the right. So let me grab a little bit of pink here and I'll add a flower over here that's going to be on the window and it's going to be like coming off the side. See that? And I can add lightness or darkness to that, but you can see how it kind of makes it look a little natural for it to kind of be spilling off. Now I could add a little bit of a red accent. I could even add a lighter accent. It doesn't matter. These kind of look like, oh, there's beautiful like pointy flowers. I can't remember what they're called, but those are just like a fun little thrill. I could let it dry and add a little bit of lightness if I wanted to. You can play with this flower detail. The possibilities are really endless on what you want to add and where. But letting these dry will help your secondary colors not smudge in. So there's kind of different levels of intention. But I'm gonna give this a minute to let it dry. And then I'll show you all we'll continue to build out our greens below. We'll do our greens as our final step. If folks are still working, feel free to continue to work. But to be mindful of the time, I will show you how to add in some darker green contrast, which will really start to kind of ground the flower box. So right now it's it's becoming more thrilly and frilly. The green will really ground us with our shading component, the dark green. And I'll bring this back so you can see how my thrilling is the pointy ones. My filling is the center. And then if you wanted to do any more like the spilling over, that's where we can do our greens next. And you can use a light green or a medium tone green, but the darker green will definitely come to our advantage as well. So I'm just going to play with mixing some of my greens. And we're doing good on time. The darker greens are some of our final steps, just to be mindful of time if folks have to leave. But I want to be happy with the amount of green that I have here. And I might do just a little bit of extra leaves here and there to kind of be happy with what I have kind of falling down. So I'm just going to use, this is kind of a grass green that I'm using. I'm not using like a sage green. But I'm just adding some extra leaves here and there. The darker green will come in handy in a minute to really ground some of this work. We're also going to be tucking some dark green into our flowers to really give the depth to our eye. So you can tuck in little green dots even in between your flowers. So if any of you have gaps, you can use green and tuck it in between these flowers. Like there's leaves on these flower plants, because that's typically what happens, right? It's not just all color, it's foliage too. So you could tuck in green at the top of these areas. If you have any weird window areas, you could do green kind of up into your window. It's absolutely up to you. But the darker green is the kicker. It's kind of like a forest green. I'm going to make that color next, and you'll see the difference visually. I'm mixing a little black with this kind of grass green for an army green. And I really just added this as an accent. So where I have some of these lighter and medium tone greens, I just tuck in a few of these darker greens along the way. So I'm just going to start on the right side, and it could be on the underside of some of these. Since if it's a shaded look, you could do a little bit of the darker green. But see the difference. This shaded green looks. So I'm just tucking in a little bit of a third green on the leaves, and you can tuck a little bit of the darker green again inside. But these are the little details. It's so much fun to play with. And if you can cover up an area, like if you have too much light green in an area, you could absolutely put some of this darker green leaves. And these are just little daubs and dots. I'm just using my eye. I'm not doing particular leaf-like shapes. You can also do a little bit of darker green kind of up near some of your stalks. If your stalks need a little bit of definition, you can kind of tuck in a little bit of darker green in some areas to really give your stalk a little bit more definition too, if you need it to stand out a little bit. Those are choices you can make. Like there's little green buds maybe growing on the sides of the stalks. This could be used for texturing or for shading. I'm just paying attention to the bristles at the tip of the brush. And they're just kind of dancing around some of these flower buds. Just adding in a little bit of extra texture, a little extra contrast. And you're going to get to a point, you'll be like, Megan, I'm done. I think I'm good. Or you'll say, Megan, I want to spend another hour on this. This is you. But you can see by adding in a little bit of extra contrasting green, it really just makes it a little bit more nature-like, right? It kind of brings it all together. But the contrasting, a little lightness on some of these flowers, a little darkness. Get this lighting here. Let's see. And I'll hold up my other one so you can see how different mine are, which in comparison to yours, they're all going to be so different, right? So look, this is my original. So this one was a little lighter. See that? One's a little lighter than the other. Like I used lighter grays on my window here, right?
Yeah.
But they're similar, but they're different, right? I did these peachy color roses, these yellow and orange ones. I like those ones a lot. So you can see the lightness is really pretty. I did more light pink roses in my original, right? So think about the differences.
I added some blue flowers in.
Yay! Oh, I love the blues. So pretty. I love the blues. Like forget me not, like little tiny blue ones, but you did some stocky blues. I like that a lot. Beautiful. Yeah. Using a small brush again gives you the most control. And the light pink roses, the light pink flowers will match your background too. So if you want to add some more of that contrast, for me, I might go in and add a little bit more light pink here or there. Just a couple little more light pink flowers will lighten it up. Or even white. I think I added more white flowers in my last one. It's easy. It's just a simple change, simple addition. There, and it's now a little lighter. Just building in this beautiful arrangement. But the spilling and the overflow on your window, right? The tall ones coming up, look to the left of your window, look to the bottom. This is kind of what will really allow the person interpreting your art to see the blooming, the expansion of the flowers. If it's spilling over your windowsill, over your window flower box. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to unpin me because I want to look at all of you. I'm going to pause the video. If folks are watching this recording and you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out at any time. But I'm going to pause the video